Hello there. I'm here to talk to you about your paper assignment for Film 2759G. To get you a little bit more in touch with history outside of the United States and Hollywood, I'm going to ask you to choose a cinema history period, a decade or less, and a country outside of the United States, and explore films that are connected with that decade and country, and come up with some kind of a thesis about its history. So you're looking at this particular decade or country, and you're going to be writing to me and to your classmates about that period and that region. And you're going to choose films that represent that period and that region. So those films could be a variety of genres. They could be connected by director, which means biographical history. They could be from the same studio. They could be about a film movement like the French New Wave. They could highlight technological changes like the emergence of CGI or green filmmaking or something like that. Or they might just reflect the history or culture of that country in that period of time that you're looking at. So once you choose your region and your country, you're going to choose films, and I'll talk about how you might go about that in a second. And then you're going to put it all together to write a 1,500 word analysis that connects those films that you've chosen to the country and the decade in a variety of ways. So for an analysis paper that you're going to be writing, you're going to want to include these things: an introduction that provides background information on the region and the period and the selected films that you chose. And those things are going to lead you to a statement of your thesis, the point that you're going to be making in your paper about how the films are connected with the region or period in relation to those different kinds of history. The body of your paper is going to give the evidence and examples that support your thesis via the background and reasons that you note are connecting with that thesis, and evidence and examples from your films and from your textbook. And then, of course, your conclusion is going to wrap everything up for you. So here's a little bit more specific information about the things you're going to want to make sure you include. You want to make sure you include that background information and introduce your films. You want to make sure that the claims that you make about the films, the period, the country are going to be substantiated by research. And this time, the research is only going to be connected to your textbook. So you only have to use your textbook for this. You're going to find a lot of good information in there to help you. Now, that means that you need to make sure that you put down the page numbers from the textbook where you get your information about the films, the country, the studio, the directors, etc. And make sure you not only put that stuff in a works cited or a reference page, but also put it in the paper itself. So anytime that you're telling me about something related to the studio, maybe in Japan, that you're exploring, then you're going to want to make sure that you cite it with textbook information and that you put the page number where you get the information, even if it's not a quote. Just if you have the information and you're putting it in your own words, you still need to make sure you cite it with page numbers and parentheses. You want to discuss at least 2 films, and I actually have an example with 3 from your chosen country and decade. And if it works for you, you can compare and contrast the films, showing how they do or do not reflect the period, genre, movement, whatever you're exploring, and then make sure you have a conclusion. And as I said, you want to make sure you have like 1,500 words approximately, and use that MLA, APA, whatever format you're familiar with. Just be consistent. Now, For this paper, you're going to do a proposal first, then you're going to do a rough draft, and then you're going to do a final revision so that I can give you feedback along the way. And you also are going to get feedback from one of your peers in the class. And we'll obviously talk more about that later. So one of the things that I suggest you think about are for your proposal are the decade and region that you want to look at, the country, and then the type of films that you might want to explore that maybe are interconnected already by their genre. So, for example, I love South Korean zombie movies. And so I would say you could talk about 3 South Korean zombie movies from the same year. So these are obviously going to be from the 2010s decade. But the Wailing, Seoul Station, and Train to Busan um, also are going to showcase not only the horror zombie genre and how it's different maybe in South Korea versus here, but also how they respond to the 2010 South Korean culture and history. And here you've got these horror zombie movies that also are different modes. So one's animated, one's a thriller, one's more like a family melodrama. They're all zombie movies, but they're all a little different. But they're also all reflecting that cultural and social history. So for this, you're going to want to talk about the film industry in the mid-2010s and its response to the cultural elements of the period. Talk about how the zombie movie and the genres it mixes with fits with that industry and the culture and period and region. And then talk more specifically about how each of the film choices that you make illustrate the points that you're making in your paper. Then you're going to bring it all together in your conclusion. So for your proposal, all you're going to do is kind of give me a scratch outliner about what you're going to be doing in your paper. You're not doing it yet. You'll do that beginning in your draft. And then your draft will be a place where you can have something really rough that you can get some feedback on and then revise. So that's kind of what you're doing with your paper. Now, there's lots of ways that you can approach it. As we start working on the different international film movements and genres, which we'll do right away, you'll see that there's just immeasurable number of ways that you could approach this paper, and I'm very willing to help. And I hope that also helps you think about what you might want to do with your paper. Thank you.